of the faculty and students.
तो WhatsApp भी बंद नहीं हो सकता?
I spent 39 years in the Foreign Service trying to understand geopolitics and international affairs. After that, I spent
अरे नहीं WhatsApp
6 years
ये कह रहा हूँ.
in the world of think tanks associated with the United Nations as Secretary General of the Independent Commission of Multilateralism, which was set up to see if the United Nations was fit for purpose. And I spent about 7 or 8 years as a minister in the Honorable Prime Minister's team. I, for one, have never doubted the importance of studying the global situation, geopolitics, and international relations. I had that belief when I joined the Foreign Service in 1974, and if anything, that belief has been strengthened. And since the time available with us is not unlimited, I will give you a few thoughts as it were straight from the heart. But I can also tell you that, and that's why I in some ways envy my friend Professor Nalapad Das, who was 1 year senior to me in school, because he can set his own diary and spend long hours amongst people involved with and actively working on academic issues. Of all the things that I've done in life, I think perhaps what gave me the most intellectual satisfaction, and I choose my words carefully, was the 1 year I spent on the teaching faculty of a Delhi University college. I'm not saying that what I do as a Union Cabinet Minister doesn't give me satisfaction. I chose the word intellectual satisfaction. Why do I say that? Because in my current position, I have to worry about issues dealing with bread and butter. If there is conflict in, let's say, in the Red Sea, or there is conflict in the Russia-Ukraine theater, that can affect the availability of energy, or it can affect the price at which you access energy, which is equally important. So that is important, and I think if you are able to navigate that, you get a lot of satisfaction. In other words, you have to keep the ship sailing, and you have to navigate that ship as part of a team headed by the Honorable Prime Minister. But why does academia, and this is why I think you are all very lucky, especially those of you who are on the faculty, because it gives you an opportunity to go into the perspective of how something happened. And today, therefore, for the sake of the intellectual construct or the conceptual construct that I want to place before you, I want to go back to a date in Indian history. It is 2nd February 1835. On that day, 190 years ago, and we are on what, 28th February, 26 days and 190 years ago, a man called Thomas Babington Macaulay minuted his famous views on education. Why was he able to do it? Because India then was under colonial domination. Why was India under colonial domination? For the simple reason that we allowed an entity which was a trading entity, the East India Company, to come here to trade and in the process establish political dominance. Taken from 1757, for 190 years, India was a colony. I mean, you can disagree with my analysis of the dates, but you can't disagree with the dates. Battle of Plassey to 1947. Again, 190 years. Why did we come under colonial domination? You could write a PhD thesis on it. But I can tell you two things. All available evidence, both inside the country and outside the country, in centers of excellence of the kind you are going to have now, particularly in the University of Cambridge, a historian by the name of Angus Maddison. He said that in the year 1700, that is a good 57 years before the Battle of Plassey, India's contribution to the global GDP was 25 to 27%. And India and China were roughly at the same level of contributing to the global GDP. Fast forward 190 years, in 1947, and you can have again a disagreement on where we were. I think our GDP and contribution to global GDP had come down to 2% or something. Again, I want to fast forward. And I come to 2014 when the Honorable Prime Minister assumed responsibility for the running of this country. We were the 11th largest economy in terms of GDP. We were famously characterized as belonging to the fragile five. Those of you who are students of economics will understand it better, but those of us who are students of other social sciences, it's easier to understand. When you travel and you've got a breakable vase or something in your suitcase, then you tell the airport authorities to say, fragile, handle with care. You were roughly at that level. Your economic cake was not too small for the simple reason that it has a large population. So even with a large population and very low per capita incomes, you still had a pretty reasonable size of economy. But all that began to change. From the 11th largest, you became the 5th largest economy. The two economies ahead of us, Japan and Germany. Japan is already technically in recession, being defined as quarter-on-quarter negative growth. Germany has survived the second quarter. First quarter was negative, second quarter was 0.9. So if you're negative in one quarter, 0.9 others, you're not in recession. But unless things change, anyway, that's not important. I'm not here to discuss other economies. But without any doubt, India will be amongst the 3 top economies of the world by the time you guys vote for the next election, by the time those 5 years are over. Why is it important to understand geopolitics? So that you don't make the same mistakes again. And human beings, even the best of us, are liable to make the same mistakes again. When you make a mistake which is of historical proportion, it is tragic. But I want to quote the one philosopher. In my education, I find that most Western political philosophy can be characterized in the study of either Karl Marx on the left and David Hume on the right. And it is this famous man on the left who said in the 18th Brumaire to Louis Napoleon, he said Hegel, that is George William Hegel, once famously wrote, history repeats itself. First time as tragedy, and he should have added, second time as farce. Now, what is it that gives me the most inspiration at this point of time? I'll give you a quiz. That we have been able to lift 250 million people out of multidimensional poverty in the last 10 years. One pick. B, that we have been able to, we are probably the only country in the world which has been able to meet its climate obligations, the Paris obligations. 3, that in effect we have taken, thanks to the Prime Minister's visionary approach, we have taken the benefits of development to the farthest, that is the SDGs, through Sarvodaya se Antyodaya, to the farthest first. I've given you 3, I can give you a few more. That today we've built 11 crore toilets. We have given Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana sanction to 4 crore Indian people, that we give Ujjwala connections to our economically weaker section households, and we've distributed 11 crore Ujjwala connections. I've given you 6 or 7. And if you are asked to choose which is the most important, I think any sensible person would say all of the above. Now, could you have done this just to concentrate on your internal? Probably the answer is yes. But you have to be mindful of where you are situated. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, we didn't select our location. I mean, we have a Western neighbor. These were two countries born in 1947, literally from the womb of the same mother. And one today is a basket case and reeling, and the other is a highly successful democracy like India. Why do I make this point on democracy? I make this point on democracy because I asked your Pro-Vice Chancellor, I said, given this audience, this very impressive numbers, how many of them are faculty and how many of them are students? So he gave me a proportion. I think many of you will be voting for the first time. And I think one of the most important distinguishing characteristics of Bharat today, not that we will become a Viksit Desh or a developed country by 2047, that we will. But we have the great fortune of being a democracy. And democracy in India didn't come with that gentleman I quoted in 1835. India is not only the world's largest democracy, and permit me, I hope there are some press people, one of the loudest, most robust democracies. If you're in my profession as I am, the one I'm in these days, you can expect to get trolled morning to evening. Even with the things you do very well, you'll get, criticized for. That's part of it. You have to grow a thick skin. No, but we are also, people seem to forget, we are also one of the world's, not one of the, we are the world's oldest democracy also. For those of you who are students of history, you would have read that we had republics in the 6th century BC in the east of India, Vaishali, and other places. Do you know of the three civilizations which are regarded as the great civilizations of the world? Popularly, you can agree, disagree. The Chinese civilization, all along the river, the Mesopotamian, Euphrates, Tigris rivers, and the Indian civilization. Again, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Many of them are dead civilizations. You go and worship, the tombs of your ancestors. How many other countries have cities like Varanasi, which are thousands of years old, and you're trying to convert that ancient city into a modern city? So I was very happy when I was coming here and the Vice Chancellor showed me different professions, different disciplines, different blocks, all built on 40 acres. I'm told soon to be 80 acres. You have an architectural block which my distinguished predecessor inaugurated. But today, with the green lighting or start of the Center on Geopolitics and International Relations, it's a very wide field. But believe me, no matter where you are studying geopolitics and international relations, India today is very much at the center of those changes taking place. And the manner in which India chaired the G20 in a deeply divided world. Make no mistake, the world is deeply divided. Much of the narrative that we get coming out on all issues, ranging from trade, environment, is the narrative of those who are in a position to assert their dominance in producing the narrative. My only regret is that I'm not a professional diplomat now. I mean, I was many years ago. Because it's so much easier now. If somebody says something to you, you can just shine the mirror back. Because you have the benefit of those things. I mean, Europe is not in a position to lecture you on agricultural policy. They had the most heavily subsidized common agricultural policy. Whenever we became competitive in an area like the production and export of textiles and clothing, they took it away from the free trade rules of the GATT, the predecessor of the WTO, and they put it under a derogation. When it came to energy, it's very interesting. Crude oil flowing from a pipeline from Russia to Hungary was exempt. Crude oil flowing from Russia to China through a pipeline was exempt. Crude oil being sold from the Sakhalin to Japan was exempt. And for the rest of the world, they wanted to put a price cap. But welcome to the inventive Indians. We said, thank you very much. We'll play that also. So we are in a situation today. Somebody asked me, don't you feel the pressure of these things sometimes? I said, I'm fortunate I work for a prime minister whose mind is not wired to feel any pressure. And as a result of which, none of us feel any pressure. Today, you can hold your head high. You can look anybody in the eye and say, this is what we've done in India. It is not our case that what we have accomplished is the total story. Not at all. We are very proud of the fact that we are in transition. But we are even prouder, more proud of the fact that we are in transition to good things. And that, if you look at Ernst & Young or any other of these consulting groups, they will tell you that by 2040 or so, India's economy will be huge. Within the next 5 years, we will be one of the top 3 economies in the world. And after that, it's only a matter of how you all perform. Because my generation, I think we have a little more role to play, but I suspect the average age of the students must be what, 20? 20 or so? So we are already in 2024. In the next 23 years, you will be in the prime of your life. Therefore, the education that you receive, the contribution that you make, that will determine the contours of what a developed India will look like. And my only submission is I don't think we need to wait till 2047 to be a Viksit Desh. It will happen much earlier. So I want to pay a compliment to you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, the Pro Vice Chancellor, all the faculty. I think you've got an exciting job on your hands.
ना मेरा फोन नहीं उठाया उनको कॉल किया था मैं फिर से करूँगा
I feel, I may be wrong, that the best is still to come for India.
245 में कह रहे हैं
And I feel that the growth that we have registered in the last 10 years, very impressive. I'll give you some statistics on my 2 ministries. Then we can maybe invite some question and answer. McKinsey did a study 2 years ago or 3 years ago and said that India is building between 700 and 900 million square meters of urban space every year. You know how much that is? That's the equivalent of a Chicago. We are building one Chicago every year between now and 2030. You go around the country, you see that development. You come to Delhi, you see that development. We used to not have an urban transport system. Today, I can tell you, in the next 3 years, we'll have the world's 2nd largest urban transport system, the metro system. We already have 906 kilometers of metro operational. We have a 939 kilometers under construction with fixed timelines. We will overtake Japan and Korea, and in another 2 years or so, the United States, which has 1,560 kilometers. But that's a highly developed country. They don't need more metro, and we will overtake them. Then it will be China and India. Now, are we or are we not reclaiming what we had? I'm not talking about metros. No, anywhere. Look at airports. We had 74 airports in 2014, you are 150 now. All Indian airports are buzzing with activity. I don't mean just Bangalore. You look at our airlines, flourishing. When I was Civil Aviation Minister, we managed to privatize Air India. Today that led to an order of 1,000 planes. It's because the Modi government is able to take the correct decision, you go forward. But absent that understanding of what's happening in the world, I think you can make mistakes again. Today, we are very proud that we were able to play unifier in a deeply divided world in G20. Today, when the Prime Minister speaks or India speaks, you can hold your head high because you are for the processes of peace. Everywhere. There will be a lot of people say India is taking sides for India first. We have to navigate our interests. We have to make sure that our first needs are met. On my petroleum and natural gas side, I should be called a Minister for Energy Transition. We consume 5 million barrels of oil every day. Our refining capacity is 254 million tons per annum. It's going to go up to 300 and 400. So what are the challenges we had to face? 60 million people go to the petrol pump every day to fill up. 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, cars. We had to face a trilemma. Availability, nowhere in the last few years was there even any shortage of energy. Affordability, we were the only country in the world where petrol and diesel prices actually came down in 2 years. And finally, sustainability. Our sustainability, our transition to green fuels, to biofuels, our green hydrogen story, that's all work in progress. So I want to thank all of you. I've taken exactly the amount of time I intended, and I think that will leave us a few minutes for interaction also. So thank you very much, and God bless all of you. You are the heirs to the Viksit Bharat, and you will determine it. So heartiest congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The floor is now open for discussion and interaction.
Just please identify yourself so that I know who's asking the question, and then let's get started.
Sir, good afternoon. Myself, Veeramani, working here as a training and placement officer. I have one question. Why petroleum products are not brought under GST in India?
For a very simple reason, and the answer is also very simple. The GST Council takes decisions on the basis of unanimity, and the states which are very much they have their finance ministers part of this, they don't want to forego the revenue. So what they'll do is that political party which is in power in that state will say, bring price down, bring price down. But when it comes to foregoing revenue there, they will refuse to do it because they don't want to forego revenue. So what happened is recently, I think the Kerala High Court passed provided an instruction that this should be placed on the agenda of a GST Council meeting. So I think there was a meeting of the GST Council in Allahabad, Prayagraj, if I remember, and there, as anticipated, all the states which are non-BJP ruled, they all opposed it. So best thing is vote for the BJP. We might end up getting energy under the GST.
Kindly keep your questions brief.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Srinidhi from School of Civil Engineering. I request you, through your experience, to share insights how our students can speak well like you and Mr. Jaishankar, who are diplomats earlier, so that we can also train our students in the same way.
So I think if either Jaishankar or I have to share our experiences, it will take a little longer. No, let me just say two things. Let me say two broad things.
Country where petrol prices came down.
And I speak for myself. I'm sure that my colleague, if you call him, he would happily respond to that. Look, at the heart of your question is considering how did you feel as a diplomat, how did you feel? And I think at the heart of that is, do you enjoy what you are doing? And how did you make the transition? I told you, I enjoyed being an academic. I spent a year teaching on the teaching faculty of a Delhi University college. I enjoyed that immensely because it gave me time to do my own things, structure my thoughts, etc. A diplomat's life is very often misunderstood. It is misunderstood because you think, you put on a suit and a tie and attend cocktail parties and then you make small talk. I'll give you a small indication of my postings. After my language posting in Japan, my wife and I went to Japan to study Japanese and we had our first posting. I've had postings in Sri Lanka where we dealt with the Sri Lankan ethnic crisis. I was the negotiator with the LTT chief, Mr. Velupillai Prabhakaran. Under the then High Commissioner, we contributed and tried to help in the resolving of an ethnic crisis. Most of my other assignments have been again dealing with issues like trade policy. So you get a variety of experiences, and if you are serious about your job, then you put your best into it. As a minister, now I think I've been a minister for 7.5 years or so and going on. I've had housing and urban affairs for the maximum, all the period of time. First as Minister of State, independent charge, and then later as Cabinet Minister. When I became Housing and Urban Affairs Minister, somebody asked, what is a diplomat going to do in Housing and Urban Affairs? And I think a very intelligent answer came from somebody I worked with when I was Secretary General of the Independent Commission on Multilateralism. Kevin Rudd, the former Prime Minister of Australia, was the chair. He told somebody, and I happened to be sitting there, he said, just look at what they do. Out of the 17 SDGs, 7 of them are covered by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Dealing with absolute poverty, dealing with inclusive cities, SDG 11. If you SDG 5, women's empowerment, also if you build toilets, whom does the toilets help? The girl child, the dignity of the girl child. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 4 crores, in whose name is the title of the house, the lady of the house. So, if you look at it that way, these are all learning processes. Then I did civil aviation. I told you, 2 years during the pandemic. We still managed to sell Air India, and everybody is now happily celebrating the success of Indian civil aviation. Then commerce and industry. And now, 2 heavy charges, petroleum, and I'd never done energy earlier. I'd done foreign policy, security policy. I see Admiral Vasan has just walked in. He was a Rear Admiral in the Navy when I was Joint Secretary Navy. So, just to tell you, each of these professions, whether you are in diplomacy or you are in politics, there is content to it. So I think this whole question of how did you make the transition, I find that not very difficult to answer, because the fact is, one day you're doing one thing, next day you're doing the other. So you don't have when I deal with energy, I have to worry about transition. When will we transition out of fossil fuels into green energy totally, etc. So I hope I've answered your question reasonably in terms of what you were looking for.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, here. First of all, thank you for. Actually, I'm getting a bit nervous because I have one question which can be deal with the future of India. I'm Akanksha Madan from School of Legal Studies. First of all, thank you for gracing your presence with all of us. And my question is, with the rapid growth of green technology, what could be the future of oil and gas industry in India?
No, first let me ask you, why are you nervous?
I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to such a huge...
You've asked a perfectly, not only valid, but I think a brilliant question. Your question is, with the increase in green, sustainable energy, what will be the future of fossil fuels? That's your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll answer it. Frankly, India never took its exploration and production, E&P, very seriously. I am not willing to believe that if there is oil or gas, let's say in the very well-defined areas of the Indian Ocean and beyond, why under that it would not flow to our areas? But we never took it seriously. And one of the very strong pieces of evidence of that is that when I became a minister in July 21, when I got this portfolio, I discovered that for some reason or the other, out of the 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin, much of it was not available for exploration and production. In some case, the Navy would have a problem, in some case, the Coast Guard would have a problem, and in some case, I find out ISRO was having a problem. Then, when we launch our satellites, we can't have an absurd argument. So the Prime Minister took a conscious decision. Out of that 3.5 million square kilometers of sedimentary basin, 1 million square kilometers, we immediately, which was a no-go area, we freed it up. freed it up to do what? You come and do the exploration and production. We did it recently. Now people are already striking oil there. I mean, it's already happening because you are not exploring. So you got, and one foreign oil company told me, an Indian person working for them, a very interesting argument he was giving me. He said, price of oil is down. Why do you need to spend money on exploration? This is a self-serving argument. We had that on the health sector also. Why do you want to produce vaccine? Pfizer makes vaccines. These are all apologists for importing more expensive oil and vaccines. We changed all that. We did other things also. One of the problems was data is not available. So we took all the data and put it in a data repository in the University of Houston in Texas. And you know what has happened after that? One of the major oil companies in the world, there are only 4 or 5 of them, they are devoting 20% of their supercomputing time to studying the data in the Andaman Basin. Then people used to say, you go to India, you spend a lot of money exploring, then the Indians will turn around and say, this is sovereign, we are keeping this. They were saying, forget it. We will incentivize your production. Instead of production sharing, let's have revenue sharing. And you don't want to spend your money, we will give you money to explore. So you change the whole thing. Suddenly it's looking better. Some time ago we found oil 35 kilometers off the Kakinada coast. We are already producing or will be producing 40,000-50,000 barrels a day of oil from there. So India is changing. But make no mistake, you have an economy whose population size is 1.4 billion. Its rate of growth of energy consumption is 3 times the global average. So you will need more and more of energy. So we've taken biofuels blending from 1.5% in 2014 to 12% now. We had a 20% target for 2030. We brought that target to 2025. But you will still need in the transiting period. But I have a theory. The real game changer will be green hydrogen. And in one of the first meetings I had with the US Energy Secretary, Jennifer Greenholm, she talked about 1 for 1 for 1. So I was very new, I didn't understand it. 1 kilo of green hydrogen for $1 for 10 years. Today the price of green hydrogen is about $3 in India. I was asking somebody, when can you bring that down? He said, in another few years we'll bring it down to $2.30 or 40 cents. Now listen, we have an import bill on crude and other imports of $185 billion a year. You tell me, if the price of green hydrogen per kilo comes down to $2.30 or 40, which government will not suddenly say stop fossil fuel imports, let's put that money into subsidizing green hydrogen? What do you need for green hydrogen? You need inexpensive, cheap energy, green energy, and you need an electrolyzer. And we have both. I mean, now you have this pump storage system where you take water up to a height of 50 feet, 100 feet, 2,000 feet even, and drop it. That produces electricity. And you have an electrolyzer. Recently, the India Energy Week, when I took the Prime Minister round to the BPCL stall, they had made an electrolyzer purely indigenous, using their own technology along with bark. And I remember when the days when I was with the Navy, they used to, in submarines, they used to use that technology because you needed to provide oxygen to people who are subsurface. And they took that energy, let's just throw the hydrogen out and consume the oxygen. Now you'll use that hydrogen to propel the energy machine and use the oxygen also. So you split water and you get green hydrogen. So this is all happening, and it'll happen when more innovation takes place, more these things. And final comment on green hydrogen. I think India is the place where green hydrogen is going to succeed. Why? Simple. Green hydrogen will succeed because in any place where there is local demand, there is local production and local consumption, because the gas cannot be transported. You can export green ammonia, but hydrogen you cannot transport. And in India we have all three. And the weight I'm saying, I think green hydrogen is the real success story waiting to, make a fundamental difference in transition.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for patiently answering the questions and sharing your valuable insights on geopolitics and other global matters. As teachers, it feels really good because you mentioned that teaching was the only profession that gave you intellectual satisfaction. Thank you so much, sir. And now may I request our Pro-Chancellor, sir, Shri Umesh S. Raju, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
You required links after posting.
भाई बंद कर रहा हूँ मैं कोई और पप्पू आ रहा है अब
नहीं
ये पप्पू आ रहा है ना
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is an important day for Reva University as we inaugurated the Reva Center.